In this week's The News, National decides the captain can go down with the ship in November. Is the crowd booing or just saying boo earns? New social sciences curriculum still racist, regressive and unfocused? And we find out what we're watching, and based on how this gimmick of a content piece works, it's probably not this. All that and more on this week's The News. Hello there, kia ora. Welcome to this week's The News. I'm Paul, and I spent way too long coming up with a comedy line for right here, and I kind of forgot to put out the rubbish bins this week. After spending thousands of our taxpayer dollars to fly his caucus in to Wellington last minute to see if they still liked him, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, seen here learning what the phrase dead man walking means, has survived another confidence vote from within his own ranks this week. While the specific details of the caucus are kept from the public, a number of reports claim no other frontbench MP wanted what was considered a poisoned chalice of a role, and Chris Pink was either the instigator or sacrificial lamb. While the caucus lasted about 3 hours, the subsequent statement took just 71 seconds and contained 4 provable falsehoods. The phrase "fix the basics and build the future" multiple times, and was the second most depressing thing on television after hearing that the country's worst millionaires are wanting to set up their own sports league. New Zealanders have just over 80 days until they too can have a confidence vote on whether or not they like Christopher Luxon. ACT leader and Deputy Prime Minister David Seymour, seen here with convicted paedophile and former party president Tim Jago in a meeting where they were talking about how these days everyone wants to play the victim, has pulled out last minute of a planned debate with the Big Hairy Network in Auckland this weekend and ongoing debates with the organisation, citing the treatment of ACT MP Todd Stevenson in their first debate in Dunedin, which Todd described as
Look, yeah, really well organised event, I've got to say. So congratulations to you and the rest of the team. That's right, but they were very well behaved. Generally, the crowd, I've got to say, we felt well looked after. And that's what democracy is about, right? Different people having different views. And I've got to say, you've run a very well run event. So.
Seymour, who is willing to stand on street corners and be yelled at or makes a point of going to Waitangi every year to record social media content of him being booed, said he felt the party did not need to show up because, as far as he's concerned, BHN was not important enough. Across the country, ACT MPs and candidates are reporting being loudly booed at as well and criticised as public meetings ramp up in the build-up to the election. ACT's Simon Court was on the receiving end of it in Auckland University, while Parmjeet Palmer was drowned out on stage in the Waikato. Debates at Auckland University and Victoria University of Wellington have also seen significant pushback on ACT Party candidates and their policies, especially policies that have negatively impacted students, Māori and the poor. So you know most of them. But don't worry, the paedophile former president thinks they just want to play the victim, and the candidates describe the events as lively to downplay the noise. And remember, if you want to boo your local ACT candidate or any of the coalition candidates, you can do so in person at local candidate events happening in your community right now. If you live in a lower socioeconomic area, this may actually be the first time your local right-wing candidate or MP has visited. So make sure it's also their last, with loud booing. Labour MP Willow Jean Prime, seen here straight up rocking this korowai, has sounded the alarm as it was discovered that she was one of 115,000 New Zealanders, made up disproportionately of young people and Māori, who are sitting inactive on the electoral roll. Voters are generally moved from the dormant to the dormant role if the Electoral Commission has been unable to contact them, and Prime discovered her listing came up as not on the roll after a standard check in June. She had been asked by the Commission to update details, but because she hadn't moved and there were no details to update, she didn't change anything. She went on to say, "I did what they told me to do, and every time I went on there my details were correct. I hadn't moved. The whole situation is a bit messy," said Justice Minister Paul Goldsmith, seen here watching as another election loss on the horizon seems to get closer and closer, who oversees the election process rules, said, "Look, another 115,000 Māori who can't vote sounds exactly like the outcome that we've been aiming for with all of our election changes. And if they don't notice, well then that's not my fault." Amongst all the noise of leadership challenges and opinion polls, the Ministry of Education quietly rolled out its updated social sciences curriculum, which critics have said presented a highly sanitised version of New Zealand history. It included framing colonisation as just a thing that happened in the 19th century, that rangatira who signed Te Tiriti ceded sovereignty, blamed the land wars on differences of opinion. It removed any work around climate change, discrimination, poverty, and other ways that systems can be manipulated or fail people until year 10 of school. The Principals Federation has criticised the curriculum as being more than possible to actually teach, while Education Minister Erica Stanford, seen here avoiding eye contact when asked if she supports the Prime Minister, refused to say she supported the curriculum until the day after it was voted on and someone else was fired for supporting the changes. The Chief Ombudsman has criticised the government's decision to hide documents about the coalition's planned LNG terminal, which stated the terminal would have no impact on electricity prices as claimed by the government. The Chief Ombudsman found missing elements withheld from the public that showed similar or better outcomes on power bills were important context, and that the reasoning was for not sharing them was not valid, and trying to avoid the accountability that comes with spending public funds. Said Energy Minister Simeon Brown, seen here being told you must be this tall to be the party leader, I'm totally accepting of claims that we need to prove things with proof, like the time that I went driving to show I have a driver's license without showing people I have an actual license. And my advisors I hired directly from the extractive industries that include the largest LNG user in the country tell me that the data was probably flawed or old or something. Police have issued an apology over incorrect information it used to criticise Labour Party candidate Rakesh Naidu, seen here with the one person who could do the funniest thing right now to shake Christopher Luxon's confidence even more than his caucus did this week, after it was revealed that he had fully followed protocol in informing his chain of command of his intention to run. Initially, the police commissioner and police minister both criticised Naidu for withholding information. With the OIA data revealing he did in fact follow protocol, the police were quick to apologise, but Police Minister Mark Mitchell, seen here on the steps of Parliament assuming anyone Māori is in a gang to their faces, now claims he always had reservations about Naidu. And while he can't quite put a finger on why that might be, he's sure something dodgy was happening. In the same way, he doesn't assume that all Māori are in gangs anymore. Health Minister Simeon Brown, seen here wondering how the bald guy behind him keeps sneaking into his playpen, has quietly slashed Māori representation on the Nursing Council to just one seat this week. Since September 2025, 8 sitting members of the council have been replaced by the minister, tilting the ratio of membership from more elected members to more appointed members, and reducing the number of Māori voices significantly in the process. When asked about how this might impact diversity of voices and cultural competency, Brown said, "Look, it's a total coincidence that the first questions I ask when presented with candidates are, what's their skin colour, are they a member of a group of our friends, like the Free Speech Union, and are they coming to church with me on Sunday? Because, ideology is bad." A school principal in Taranaki has been struck off after collecting children's private medical information and passing it to a lawyer to support a High Court challenge against COVID-19 vaccine mandates. In 2021, the principal took significant data which included vaccination status, infection status, COVID test results, names and dates of birth, and handed it to a lawyer working for an organisation incorrectly calling themselves New Zealand Teachers Speaking Out with Science. After being ordered to stop by her board of trustees, though, she continued, with the tribunal saying her own skewed, harmful personal beliefs that caused her position of trust clearly overruled her ability to see why this was an issue and that she needed to be removed from her teaching roles to ensure safety of students going forward. Said a spokesperson for the principal, "Don't worry, she's already got a gig lined up as a New Zealand First candidate for this year's general election, so I'm sure she'll be fine." And finally, the annual New Zealand On Air Where Are the Audiences survey has been released this week with some fascinating finds. Total TV reach has overtaken global sharing platforms as the most watched media in a day. Spotify users dropped 27% daily. Older audiences prefer the news and documentary, while younger audiences prefer comedy and drama. 37% of us actively hunt for Kiwi music, and 41% would listen to more Kiwi music if it came up on our streaming services, and 81% of us enjoy seeing New Zealand faces and places on TV shows. Unless it's the Prime Minister, then for some reason those numbers plummet. And that's it for this week's news. Don't forget to check out the BHN debate this weekend. I'll be there moderating questions from the crowd. Only not to David Seymour, the big sook. Live long, prosper, be one with the force, and make sure you check those enrolment details. Until next time, I will catch you later.